Today's speaker is a longtime Mission Viejo resident. He was a member of the world-famous Natadores swim team. He was also a two-time gold medalist in the 1976 Montreal Summer Olympics. He is the current mayor of the city of Mission Viejo. Let's welcome Brian Goodell.
Bruce. Welcome, everybody, and thanks for coming out today. It's exciting to see you here, and I'm excited to share some information with you today about the Olympics in Mission Viejo and the past, the present, and the future. So I want to thank one of our commissioners, Mr. Bob Breton, and former past mayor, for writing, editing, and directing this program today and running the slideshow. Bob and I have met several times over the last few weeks to decide what we wanted to include, and he's come up with a plethora of photos that we're going to reminisce about and have some fun talking about today. And then we'll have some question and answers at the end. So please feel free to hold your questions until we get through this slideshow. And then we'll answer as many questions as you want to ask. How's that? Okay, so let's start with the past. The Natadores. I was born in Stockton, California, and learned to swim in Walnut Creek, California in 1965. This gentleman here, Jim Vasdias, taught me how to swim, and that summer I became the county champion in the 25-yard freestyle for Contra Costa County, so I guess I had an aptitude for it. Soon after that, we moved to Mission Viejo in 1968. My father was transferred here from his job from the Bay Area. My family was featured in the Mission Viejo Reporter here. This was us anxiously awaiting the arrival of the Mission Viejo Reporter in our mailbox so we could find out what was going on in town and make sure we didn't miss anything. That's my mom and my dad and my older sister Gail and little Brian there, 9 years old. And we lived on Santo Drive, very close to the Montanoso Rec Center, which I just learned this week is actually pronounced Montanoso, but I've always called it the Montanoso. The Mission Viejo, or the Montanoso Rec Center, had just recently been built before we moved to our home on Santo Drive. And these are some photos from the grand opening, and if you notice behind there's not much there on the hills. And that's where, over here there's a road, and that's where Marguerite Parkway would eventually be built, going south towards the hospital and the mall and Saddleback College. And Oso Parkway would be built over here just behind these homes here that were on Montanoso Drive, going out here. So that intersection of Oso and Marguerite is right about just past where that palm tree is sticking up over there, over the top of the building. So there was nothing there, nothing there at all. So that's how it looked in 1968. There were very few families living here at the time, but our city was growing rapidly. My parents helped to form the swim team here with some other parents and the recreation director here at the Montanoso Rec Center. And that's a shot from one of our very first swim meets, where we swam against the Dean Home team. Actually, this house, the two-story house on the hill right up there, was where I grew up, in that house. So it was brand new that year. I was a chartered member of the team of the Natadores, and our first coach was a local architect named Tom Martin. And later, Craig Brown became our coach, and he was a law student at the time. He had swum at Stanford and came down to coach us. Our first meet, as I mentioned, was against the Dean Home swim team, and we received polar bear patches that year for swimming through the first winter. It was so cold that we had little patches that had a polar bear, and our moms would sew them on our bathing suits to show that we were dedicated through the winter. Yeah. The Mission Viejo company then built the Sierra Recreation Center, and our team began to hold its training sessions and swim meets there. That was about 1970. And then about 2 years after that, the Marguerite Recreation Center was built in 1972 with the 50-meter pool and later the diving well. And that was a shot when it was pretty new there. At that time, Craig Brown finished law school and started his law career. And so the assistant coach that the company had hired, a man named Mark Schubert, who was a young guy from Ohio, he took over the mantle as the head coach of our team. 1972 was, and there's Mark right there. There's Mark and me together. Mark was a great swim coach and still is a great swim coach. So also in 1972, you all remember that Mark Spitz had a great year that year at the Munich Olympics, and he won 7 gold medals. And as a 13-year-old 7th grader, I was so excited to watch those Olympics, and that's when my Olympic dream was born. So Mark Spitz rocked those Munich Olympics. He won 7 gold medals and 7 world records, and I said, that's what I want to do. And I told my coach that's what I wanted to do. So the next Olympics in '76 was when my Olympic dream was fulfilled, and also this young man right here, Greg Louganis, won a silver medal at those Olympics as a 16-year-old in the 10-meter tower. That's the man who taught Greg to dive. That's Dr. Sammy Lee, who was also an Olympic champion diver, who was the first Korean-American Olympic gold medalist. And but he was also an ear, nose, and throat doctor, so he wasn't full-time, and later Ronnie O'Brien came and became the coach here at Mission Viejo for the diving team. That tower right there was the one that actually Greg learned to dive on at Los Coyotes Country Club, and we ended up, the Mission Viejo company bought it and moved it here from Los Coyotes later. There's a nice shot. That's Dan Beemel, who ran our recreation program with Greg and Sammy Lee, and then when they moved that tower down, then Greg moved down to train here in Mission Viejo. Craig as I mentioned, left his career to start his career as a lawyer. Mark Schubert became our head coach. He had very high aspirations for all of us and very high standards, and required extreme dedication from his athletes to attend 12 workouts a week and give 100% effort. So it paid off over the course of the years. This was the first time I won a medal at the national championships in 1974. I'm the kid near the end there in the yellow sweatsuit, Mission Viejo sweatsuit. There's a couple SC guys, a Florida guy, I'm still friends with all these guys. But anyhow, it was the first time I made a podium at the nationals as a 15-year-old. And also qualified me for my first international competition when I went to New Zealand to swim in the New Zealand Games during my sophomore year at Mission Viejo High School. This was the following year at the World Championships in Cali, Colombia. I won a silver medal in the 1,500-meter freestyle as a 16-year-old right there. And then following year was the 1976 Olympics in Montreal. And because of the dedication, the hard work that we did, we were swimming sometimes 10 to 12 miles a day in training for preparation for those Olympics. And the timing worked out perfectly for me. I kind of hit the zenith of my trajectory in 1976, and I broke my first 2 world records at the Olympic trials in Long Beach, and then went on to the Olympic Games and broke those 2 records again in the 400 and the 1,500-meter freestyle races at the Olympics. This was our training group that trained for those Olympic trials. We had our own group, and you had to have an Olympic trials qualifying time in order to be in that group that trained together. Some more shots of our team there. And this is when Shirley Babashoff and I came home from Montreal. Shirley won 5 medals, and I won 2 medals. So between us, we won 7 medals at those Olympics. Shirley won 4 silvers and a gold. And there's a great movie that was created called The Last Gold. If you will recall that Olympics, the East German women were rather dominant in swimming, and it turned out later to be revealed that they had been systematically doped with steroids to defeat Shirley Babashoff, basically. And Shirley won 4 silvers behind East German dopers, but her team, and she anchored the last race of the swimming competition in 1976 was the women's 4x100 freestyle relay. Shirley anchored it, and we beat them. There is a great a movie out, a documentary called The Last Gold. You can find it on I think on Apple TV, and I think you can find it on a few other streaming services. And I highly recommend it. It's a great movie. The day after the closing ceremonies of the Montreal Games, I had to get up really early and go to the airport and get on a loaded flight with a bunch of Tahitians that landed in LA. And first I had to go to the other side of Canada, to the West Coast, and then fly south. I had a big layover and then fly south and get there just in time to catch up with Shirley, who had a direct flight from Montreal to LA. And she didn't have to, she got to sleep in and go in the afternoon. Anyhow, they took me off the back of my plane, put me on a little bus and drove me over to her plane. I got on the back stairway on her plane, and we came off the plane together like we had been sitting together on the plane all day. And a big group of people came up on the Mission Viejo Family Fun Bus and school buses from Mission Viejo High School, including our cheerleaders, including my wife back there, Vicky, and all bunch of our Natador teammates, and they just flooded. In those days, you know, you could go to the airport, you could actually go to the gate, and the Mission Viejo High School marching band was there, and all these people. It was marvelous. This is the picture of our Olympians, our 6 Natadors who made that Olympic team in '76. It was pretty incredible to have 6 members of one team qualify for the U.S. team in those days and still today. Shirley and I again, and me again, with our medals. They took a lot of pictures that day. And there's some of our national championship trophies. I mentioned I was on that plane with a bunch of Tahitians. Well, they all gave me these bead necklaces with seashells on them, lays of seashells, so that was kind of fun. And that's Mark Schubert there, along with Nicole Kramer with me. And Nicole was only 13 years old, and she made that team. She swam the 100-meter freestyle. A Mission Viejo Reporter Special Edition about the Olympics, and that's Shirley Babashoff on the cover, one of the greatest of all time. And there's Shirley and me with Mark. So the flames of community spirit were fanned throughout Mission Viejo by the frequent Natador swimming and diving competitions over the years. The Natadors' parents and boosters always attended and ran the meets, and the team rose in prominence as it got better and better at all levels of competition. Soon we were holding our own at the national and international level, and whenever Mission Viejo hosted a meet, many residents in the community pitched in to help run the event, and they housed the athletes in their homes. It was very well known, the hospitality that exists here in Mission Viejo. Even at Commissioner Joe Blum's home, some of my rivals stayed at his house during those meets. And later, my wife and I hosted an athlete from Philippines who made the Olympics in 2000. So it's an ongoing tradition here in our city that people open their homes to the people who come from outside, from all over the world. So at this point, Mission Viejo was vaulted into the world swimming and diving scene. Mission Viejo then began to attract athletes from all over the world to train here for the Moscow Olympics in 1980, which the United States eventually boycotted. And then for the 1984 Olympics, held in Los Angeles, Mission Viejo qualified 6 swimmers and 2 divers for that meet. We gained national attention at Mission Viejo as we hosted the Los Angeles Invitational Swim Meets, the AAU Masters National Swimming Championships, the U.S. Outdoor National Diving Championships, the 17 Magazine Swim Meet of Champions, the Speedo Antron Lycra Swim Meet of Champions. Every sponsor wanted to have their gimmick that they were promoting that year. And those were the new fancy tech suits that we had in the 70s, not the full body ones, but the ones that were made with Lycra, which was a brand new product in the world at that time. And of course, Mission Viejo rose to international prominence when so many Natadors earned gold and silver medals in the Olympic Games. When it came to bringing home the gold, the Natadors were second to none. Those members right there were for the '84 Olympic team. Those were our swimmers that swam in Los Angeles. Oh, and I already went through some of these. This was one of our national championship meets right here. I think that might have been 1977. And this is one of our sample groups now, that the next generation coming up. And we have hundreds of swimmers at that facility every day, training to fulfill their dreams. Next, we're gonna, oh, this is a beautiful shot from the top of the tower. And that's, I believe, probably Michelle Mitchell's silver medal from the '84 Olympics. We already had a picture over there, and I didn't call her out, but Michelle Mitchell is our head of the Natadores Foundation executive director, so running swimming and diving now at the Marguerite Aquatic Center. She's a two-time Olympic silver medalist in diving. So next we're going to move on to talk about some other sports. 1984 Olympics, the bicycling road race happened here in Mission Viejo. It was the first event of the 1984 Olympics. Nothing generated more excitement in the community than our participation in the 23rd Olympiad in Los Angeles of 1984. Mission Viejo was selected as the official site of the men's and women's long-distance cycling road races. The start and finish line was on O'Neill Road, later renamed Olympiad Parkway, for obvious reasons, just in front of the entrance to the lake. Community spirit reached an all-time fever pitch with the frenzy of infectious fervor that surrounded the 1984 Olympics cycling event. Everyone wanted to help run the event, and volunteers by the thousands were organized to prepare for the races in advance. On the day of the twin events, thousands of residents assisted by serving water to the cyclists throughout the course and by serving as crowd control marshals along the route. And look at those hills. The excitement during the event was palpable. Throngs of people proudly lined the streets of Mission Viejo and cheered the Americans to gold medals in both the men's and women's races. Mission Viejo's master planning achievements were showcased as ABC television broadcast both races to a worldwide audience. Here, gold medalists Connie Carpenter for the USA, silver medalist Rebecca Twigg from the USA, and bronze medalist Sandra Schumacher of People's Republic of Germany are celebrating on the awards platform that was fashioned together by our volunteers for the very first ever Olympic women's bicycle road race on July 29th, 1984. Here, the gold medalist Alexei Greywald stands on the awards platform. These were the first medals awarded at the 1984 Games, the very first day of the competitions. Moving on, the 1994 World Cup comes to Mission Viejo. The world came knocking 10 years later when Mission Viejo was selected as the official training site for the men's national soccer team in preparation for the 1994 World Cup. Look at that handsome devil in the middle there cutting the ribbon. That's Mayor Bob Breton right there. World Cup was hosted by the United States. The city built the World Cup Center, now known as the Pataki Center, and the World Cup soccer field next to it. The members of the elite national squad, most of whom are now famous soccer officials, elite coaches, and TV announcers, all lived in Mission Viejo and trained here in 1993 and 1994. They played friendly games here against other national squads such as Romania, Peru, the Cayman Islands, and Mexico. Our men's national team competed well here in 1994 in the World Cup and has gone on to compete in all the Olympics and World Cup since then. It was a real springboard for men's soccer in the United States. But not to be outdone by the men, the women, there's Julie Foudy, another Olympic icon and Hall of Famer from Mission Viejo. Julie Foudy, member and captain of the U.S. women's national soccer team, winner of the Women's World Cup in 1991 and 1999. She captured 2 Olympic gold medals in 1996 and 2004, and the silver medal in the year 2000. She is nationally known as a reporter, broadcaster, and commentator on ESPN and ABC. And more importantly, she still conducts her annual soccer camps, summer soccer camps and clinics here in Mission Viejo at the World Cup field. And there's the camp going on right there with some of the greats from our women's national team helping her out. So we bring them here and we keep them here. We keep them coming back. Next, I want to talk about Mission Viejo and the Special Olympics. The Special Olympics came calling in 2015. In Mission Viejo, we were asked to be an official host for the Los Angeles Games. We hosted the delegations from Spain and Indonesia for 2 weeks here in Mission Viejo. These athletes, who played a variety of sports, trained here and fell in love with Mission Viejo. This event will not be held again in Los Angeles in our lifetime. Other special events we've participated in the Rose Parade. In celebration of the city's 25th anniversary in 2013, the city entered another float, our 11th float, appropriately entitled Making a Splash, in the Tournament of Roses Parade. Our award-winning float featured a diving pool in it, with Natadores dive and swim team members diving into the pool throughout the parade route, taking the plunge into the pool. And that was a cold day, as I recall. But they were tough, and they wore some sort of like wetsuits that kept them warm. Chloe Sutton, one of our Olympic swimmers, was in that group. Seated or standing on the front and along the sides of the float were notable Olympic gold medalists such as Greg Louganis, Julie Foudy, and myself. There's Julie at the front, and there's me and Greg at the back. And a funny little story about that one was, all along the parade route, women calling out to us, actually, to Greg, I love you, Greg. I'm like, what am I, chopped liver? Anyhow, I don't know what to tell you about that. But they do love Greg Louganis. He's amazing. We also have Olympic symbols in paintings and mosaics. Today, our rich Olympic tradition is embedded everywhere we look. We have Olympiad Park and Olympiad Parkway, and at Olympiad Park, we have a magnificent statue of Florence Griffith Joyner. And there are plaques in the park that describe many of the Olympians who have lived and trained here. There's Carolyn Schuler-Jones, swam the 1964 Olympics. Just down the road on the Olympiad Parkway, near the entrance to the lake, we have placed tiles across the road in the precise spot of the finish line for the 1984 cycle race. And there are markers and monuments on both sides of the road at this spot. We also have Olympic symbols in paintings and mosaics and in silhouettes throughout our city. And the Olympics are woven into the fabric of our city's quilt, which hangs in the library. So the Olympic torch still burns brightly here and is a vital part of our city logo. And the sports world knows full well that over 200 Olympians have lived and trained here in Mission Viejo. Yes, we are steeped in Olympic history here, from Florence Griffith Joyner to Al Joyner, from Edwin Moses to Greg Louganis, from Mary T. Maher to Michelle Mitchell, from Mike O'Brien to Shirley Babashoff, and from Julie Foudy to Brian Goodell. But we have not rested on our Olympic laurels or on our storied past. We continue to have world-class facilities, second to none. Our spectacular aquatics complex was completely rebuilt and rededicated in 2017. It's gorgeous. Our tennis facilities have also been completely refurbished and upgraded. And I'll mention we also have some pickleball courts. We have 54 parks, many walking trails and bicycle trails, and a beautiful lake. Saddleback College has also embarked upon a complete overhaul of its sports facilities. It now has a brand new state-of-the-art track and field, a new stadium, and new tennis courts, and a pickleball court. And it will be building a new gymnasium, 2 new softball fields, and many other sports facilities in the very near future. And I understand they're even talking about building some housing for the students at Saddleback. Now let's move on to the future. We are now looking forward to the new opportunities of Olympic proportions that await us. We stand ready to invite the sports world to enter our city to train and play. We have a sports flyer that describes our Olympic tradition, our world-class facilities, and our willingness to provide a home away from home for top-flight athletes. In addition, we have an Olympic committee that meets monthly, and our sports website called missionviejosports.com is up and running. It's actually, when you go to the site, it doesn't look exactly like it. That's actually a video, so there's a lot of, it changes. I mean, it has some beautiful video. Hope you will all check it out, missionviejosports.com. And we had done that just before the pandemic hit, because we want to attract. We realize one of the strengths of our city is sports tourism. It's an economic development generator for us here. It helps our businesses and it helps our people. So it's something that we focus on. And we're ready for the sports world to visit us. So moving on to the future, the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. I'll be leaving soon for Brisbane, Australia, to attend a very special 3-day conference of all the national Olympic committees in Oceania. It's hard to say that one for me, Oceania, which consists of Australia, New Zealand, and all the island nations of the South Pacific. This will be a unique opportunity to meet face-to-face with the heads of all these 17 national delegations and to invite them to come to Mission Viejo to train and prepare just before the 2028 Los Angeles Summer Olympic Games. I'll be accompanied by Greg Harney, an extremely experienced and knowledgeable member of the U.S. Olympic Committee for the last 4 years. Greg has been heavily involved in handling logistics for the Olympic Committee for the last 20 Olympics and knows exactly what other nations need and will be looking for when they come to the United States in and before 2028. Greg has visited Mission Viejo. We've shown him our facilities, we've toured him, and is well acquainted with all we have to offer and is already serving as an advisor and consultant in this initiative. In fact, he has the reason we're going to Australia is we were invited to go to Australia due to a personal relationship Greg had with the head of that organization. And there they are at the lake, right there. So the gentleman on the left is Greg Harney that I'm talking about. The gentleman next to him in the blue jacket is Rick Blas, who is the head of the Oceania Olympic National Committees group, all 17 countries. Michelle Mitchell, our Olympic silver medalist in diving and the head of the Natadores Foundation, and the gentleman who runs the lake, Andrew Cuomo, the executive director of the lake. So they toured. We had has family here. Greg found out he was coming to visit his brother and said, "You need to go to Mission Viejo." So we toured. We took the opportunity to tour him, and he invited us to come meet all these other nations. So it's a very exciting opportunity for us. We must seize this moment in time. The Olympics will not be held in Los Angeles again in most of our lifetimes, if ever. And the whole world will be coming to Los Angeles in 2028. Mission Viejo is a world-class city that is known worldwide as a sports mecca with an Olympic pedigree. This is our once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to once again open our doors and make Mission Viejo the gateway to Los Angeles for Olympians. Mission Viejo can show the world why this is where Olympic champions are born, where Olympians come to train, and where Olympians dare to dream and begin their quest for gold. And a new opportunity just raised its head, the FIFA World Cup 2026. The soccer world has recently made an overture to us that we just can't refuse. Due to our reputation as being a hotbed of soccer over the years, and due to our having hosted the USA men's national soccer team for 2 years in preparation of the 1994 World Cup, we have been contacted and asked if we would host 1 or 2 national teams for the 2026 World Cup. which will occur throughout the United States, Mexico, and Canada. We have informed them that we are ready, willing, and able to provide 2 soccer fields of World Cup caliber, as well as the Pataki Center. In addition, we plan on inviting 1 or 2 of the national soccer teams that will be here for the 2026 World Cup to come to Mission Viejo when they compete 2 years later at the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. Not to be outdone by soccer, triathlon. The Orange County Triathlon, held in Mission Viejo each year in the month of May, attracts hundreds of participants from all over the world. This sport will be in the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles as well. We will continue to host the Orange County Triathlon, which is sanctioned by the USA Triathlon Association. We may be able to host a premier NCAA triathlon also, that is also sanctioned by USTA. The Paralympics happen immediately following the Olympics, the next 2 weeks. Over the years, Mission Viejo tennis courts have been the site of many tournaments, professional as well as local. In addition, Mission Viejo has been proud to host the Junior Wheelchair Sports Camps, the International Masters Wheelchair Tennis Championships, and other wheelchair tennis clinics. The Paralympics will take place in Los Angeles immediately after the conclusion of the Olympics. We hope to attract some of these world-class Paralympians to train and prepare for the 2028 LA Paralympic Games as well. And diving competitions. With our newly rebuilt aquatic center, we have now upped our game in the world of competitive diving. Thanks to the proactive efforts of Executive Director of the Natadores Foundation, Michelle Mitchell, we hosted the FINA Grand Prix in 2019. Unfortunately, the next year, the pandemic hit, and we weren't able to host it again. We had actually a contractor host it for 3 years in a row, but the next 2 years were wiped out by the pandemic. Which attracted some of the best divers from around the world. 20 countries came to that competition. Oh, I guess it was over 30 countries. I was off by 10. In 2023, we will be hosting the United States Diving Tier Junior National Championships at the Marguerite Aquatic Center, whose positive economic impact on Mission Viejo is expected to be $1.9 million. And Michelle is now actively engaged in conversations with international federations pertaining to their utilizing the Mission Viejo Aquatic Center for their 2028 Los Angeles Olympics pre-Olympic training camps. In fact, I understand that she's well along in negotiations with several nations right now to even come this summer, start coming now. They're going to plan to come every year till 2028 and train in our city. So in conclusion, our children and grandchildren will have many golden opportunities to meet and greet all these athletes, to see them as they train and compete here, to get their autographs, and to bask in their glow. And I love that shot. Look at that. It's Greg Louganis talking to that cute little girl. And there's Michelle Mitchell. Many other cities are vying for the opportunity to see these Olympians up close before they compete in the Olympic Games. But we have the upper hand. Better facilities, better volunteers, and a beautiful, incomparable surroundings. Saddleback College is also anxious to work with us to host Olympic delegations that want to train and compete at their brand new state-of-the-art stadium and track and field, which are certified for international competition. There's something special here in Mission Viejo, a thriving community that offers us such exciting and invigorating events and activities that draw us together with a community spirit that is priceless and palpable, yet intangible and unquantifiable. There is a unique involvement in Mission Viejo, a camaraderie, a feeling of inclusiveness, which is virtually unmatched anywhere else. And this special feeling is felt by those who come here, even if only for a few weeks, because they sense the hometown feeling and sense of belonging that is ingrained in us. And at this serendipitous moment in our history, we have Olympians from all Oceania within our grasp. So on your behalf, I will be reaching out to the heads of their delegations on a face-to-face basis to show them that we care enough to invite them personally to come into our home and share our backyard and pool. And I'm confident that you will join me in extending them a warm Mission Viejo welcome when they arrive. There can be no separating the present from the past. As time goes by, and as we venture into the unknown, we can only hope that future generations here may come to appreciate the intangible as well as the tangible legacy of all that went before. A priceless inheritance of promises kept, visions realized, and dreams fulfilled. Rancho Mission Viejo was started by men who came to California during the gold rush. In our own Olympic way, we have struck gold in these thar hills. In fact, a motherlode of gold has come our way, and our Olympic future looks golden indeed. May the Olympic torch ever burn brightly in Mission Viejo. Thank you.